Hey everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel and our ongoing series, HMGM, How to Model a Gold Mill in 27,000 Easy Steps. This will be our third build episode in a row, a little bit shorter this time, but hopefully get you all caught up to the status of the model as it exists right now. Last time, we showed the application of concrete surfacing effects on the foundation structure, but we didn't have time to actually discuss the weathering, even though some of it was visible in the footage. Today we'll kick off with that. We'll show how a light touch of spray paint was used along with paint wash, and then we will move on into showing how the basics of the display base came together. So let's get started. Okay, a little update. I ended up doing 2 skim coats of the floor patch compound over the entire structure, the flat surfaces as well as the vertical ones, just to try and get them back on track. And I like how it turned out, but the next step then was to try and apply some weathering, and so I used these 5 colors, a red colored primer, and then these 4 different Rust-Oleum colors, 2 that are more in the gray-white and 2 that are more in the brown-yellow, and just did a real light spray color with some weathering to try and emphasize dirt down lower on each step level. And I don't know, I think it looks all right. The spray paint dusting method provided a nice baseline level of weathering, but to take it to the next level and match the mineral deposits that have formed on the foundation from years of wash, I needed to do exactly that, use a paint wash to try and mimic it. Paint wash is pretty basic. You take paint, in this case latex house paint, and dilute it way down, and from there you apply it and then wipe it off as necessary in order to get the right density on the surface you are washing. A handy service at many paint stores, which is used by a number of hobbyists, are these little, what is this anyway? 14.5 fluid ounces. These cans are samples. You can go to a paint store, pick any swatch you like, and then ask for a sample of it. And usually they only provide it in their base finish, which is like a satin or flat. But, you know, for $5.99, $6.99, somewhere in there, you can buy an entire 14.5 ounces of paint versus spending that exact same money for a tiny little 2 or 3 ounce tube of acrylic. In many cases, the house paint is just as good or better, provided you don't need the extra thickness. In this case, since we're making a wash, we're diluting it way down. Multiple passes of the weathering effects and wash were required in order to achieve the desired effects. Somewhere in this level, we don't really have any information about what was going on here, but since that retaining wall is below ground level, there probably would have been a lot of seepage, so a lot of redishness was added to mimic that. Here on this level, you have the ball mill, have the rate classifier, and the unit flotation cell, all of which are dealing in water and would have a bit of leakage coming down, some of which can be seen in the actual mill along this level right here. On this level, much more so, because flotation cells were located on a platform here, and the Wilfley shaker table was over here. And there is very visible running and leaching all along this wall inside the actual mill. And then here on this last level, there was a lot of water reclamation running through troughs and channels in the floor. We don't know exactly what those look like, but we do know that outside the mill, this wall here is very heavily stained, especially on this side. So that's what this is trying to mimic. 3 different colors of paint were used in order to get these effects. When working with pre-cut lumber that specifies a size, for example 2 foot by 4 foot, about all you can be sure of is that those are the absolute minimum dimensions of any given side. It may not necessarily be cut to exactly those dimensions, and for that matter it may not even be exactly square. In order to build the base, I was working with a couple pieces, one of MDF and another of plywood, and had to trim both before I could begin reinforcing them with lumber bracing underneath. The enemy of any project that involves a large flat surface is warping of the material. In this case, I wanted to use a sheet of MDF, which is a manufactured material and therefore very flat, and a very thin layer of plywood on top for decorative effects, brace it from the bottom, and then frame around the edges almost like a picture frame in order to just clean things up a bit. That meant I had to cut some pieces, and then cut some shim pieces, and then screw and nail everything together. Once the base pieces were assembled, the next step was to mount kind of a picture frame assembly around them with 45-degree cuts on the corners to keep things neat, do a little bit of caulking and filling where necessary, and then later I would break out the router in order to bevel the edges. All right, today I'm going to sand that and then just do a little router bit around the edges to take off some material, give it a little slope. In the past, I've admittedly been a little bit cavalier on safety equipment, but working with equipment like a router and even the sander's kind of nasty, I'm going to go ahead and use a safety mask. I definitely have ear protection, and even though these are plastic lens eye protection, they don't have side shields, so I'll go ahead and wear a pair of safety glasses while using the router as well. Thankfully we have a bit of a breeze today, so it'll carry the dust off. Starting with a sheet of 60 grit sandpaper to do the rough work. Well, if you're wondering what that's all about, this plywood conveniently has a second layer that is very, very reddish. So by doing these scrapes here, I'll kind of get the effect of weathered pine boards installed, which is something I kind of wanted from the beginning anyway. Okay, now I get to the really good stuff. I really don't want it rounded or anything, so I'm just going to do just a 45 knock off the sides, and maybe even rough that up a bit afterwards using like a wood rasp so that I get more of that rough cut look. Worked out pretty well, and now I just need to get the vacuum cleaner, put the attachment on backwards, and blow all this crud away, and we're good to go. Everyone, thanks for joining us again today. That wraps up today's episode, a little bit shorter, but in the future we'll be doing some cool stuff, so please stick around. I'm hoping to do a one, maybe two-part episode on the Argo Gold Mill in Idaho Springs. We've been showing some footage from that in our previous episodes, but I hope to do an actual walkthrough and kind of see how that taught me and hopefully teaches you some interesting facts about gold milling technology. And then also we'll be doing an episode on building props using found items from thrift stores and the like. Lots of cool stuff coming up. Please stay with us and look forward to seeing you again next time. Huh. Has anyone seen my phone?